Okay, admittedly, it's hard to be the 10th speaker about the same topic. But luckily, I get to talk about the quirks and the biographical information, so I'll start there. So Grandpa was born in Monroeville, Alabama. And if it worries you that I started there 94 years ago, don't worry, we're going to do a flyby. He graduated from University of Colorado, and then he went on to Duke Medical School, as Dr. Hostler said. His timing was impeccable at Duke Medical School. He entered at the same time that the U.S. entered World War II, so the Army actually paid for his medical school, so his timing was perfect. One of his rotations was at a residency at a tuberculosis sanatorium in Akron, Ohio, and it was there that he was introduced to Marjorie Cornell. Grandpa was very impressed with Marjorie, as she was the head nurse of an operating room of about 500 beds, and they took to each other very quickly and were soon married. And he's mentioned this many times to me before, including in the last week, that marrying Grandma was the best decision that he ever made. He said that she was smart and dedicated and strong-willed and a great life teammate. So after that, he still had residencies to do, and he went to Boston, where he completed a fellowship in internal medicine at the Leahy Clinic. And it was there that they had to make a decision on where they were going to set up shop for the next segment of their lives. Following ads looking for specialists, so there were magazines that had ads looking for specialists, Grandpa embarked on a tour around the eastern United States. He drove into Madison from the Michigan Road Hilltop, and he stopped at that overlook right up there, and he said that he knew he'd found the right place. Grandma had grown up in Ohio, and she wanted to be close to Ohio, but not so close that her mom could make the drive really easy. So Grandma and Grandpa were very happy in Madison from the start. They thought it was the perfect size to raise a family. Grandpa joined the Madison Clinic, which had opened about 4 or 5 years prior to their arrival. He really enjoyed the people he worked with, and he appreciated being mentored by the Modisets and Dr. Zink. And I think that's part of the reason he always felt that he had a duty to mentor the doctors who came after him. Everyone he worked with helped him become a better doctor. He thought Madison had Southern charm and Midwestern hospitality, and the people here in Madison embraced Grandma and Grandpa right from the start, and they always appreciated that. But I also get to talk a little bit about Grandpa's quirks. It can't just be positive messages here. We also need to point out a few of the other things. I think if Grandpa could have changed one thing about himself, it would have been his ability to remember names. He's always had a poor memory for names. His nurse, Dorothy Morgan, also served as his internal memory. So when Grandpa would have a new patient or somebody would come up to talk to Grandpa, Dorothy Morgan would whisper in his ear who it was, so that it could hopefully trigger something in his brain. And the story goes that one time she told him, "There's a woman in your office. It's your wife, and her name is Marge." He also says that his memory for names has declined with age, and occasionally this leads to a wistful, "Oh, to be 80 again." Everyone's mentioned his genteel nature, and it's true. He's the epitome of a gentleman, but he also is the epitome of the hair way of speaking, which is a very indirect way of speaking. So whenever I would take friends or my now wife up to eat at Grandpa's, every now and then you would have to translate what things mean. So for example, if Grandpa said, "Have some salad," that was his indirect way of saying, "Please pass the salad." Food that was unique was edible. Food that was interesting was barely edible. And you'll notice I'll talk a lot about eating because it's always been on the front of his mind. Grandpa says that he's never missed a meal. We were on a road trip once in Italy, and clearly we were late for the afternoon meal because when we finally sat down and Grandpa had a little bit to eat, he said with relief that his stomach was beginning to think that his throat had been cut. It's It's also really funny that Sue mentioned bacon, because bacon holds a really high place in Grandpa's life. His New Year's resolution one year was to eat more bacon, and unlike most of us, he kept that resolution. He's also had very strict rules about desserts. If you ever go eat lunch with Grandpa, you'll notice, or dinner, you'll notice that the preparation process begins with making desserts. And then he has strict rules on ice cream, which is just slightly above bacon on his pantheon. He says you must have ice cream for lunch and dinner, but never for breakfast, unless it's somebody else's idea. On a more personal note, I can see the effect that Grandpa's had on everyone that he's worked with. He had a similar effect, obviously, on all of us. His 5 kids, Dwight, Richard, Sarah, Mom, Bonnie, and Mary, I asked them for stories, and stories essentially were the same, that Grandpa was just such a stable person. Every Sunday he would read the comics to the kids and laugh out loud while reading them. So it just made reading the comics on Sunday something that everybody looked forward to. And that's just sort of the standard for encounters with Grandpa. He treats everyone the way that he would like to be treated. He always has a measured response. That was something useful to me. He's sort of the antithesis of today's hyperbole. He doesn't get worked up about things, and he could always calm my youthful exuberance by patiently pointing out the other side of an issue, even if he didn't believe in it. His humility and grace, many of you have mentioned, evident at all times. I noticed this even as a kid. It was easy to see the respect that he treated other people and the respect that he got in return from people. He was always held in such high esteem by the people that he ran into, and when we went out in public, everyone always came up and shook his hand. And I think I could tell that he was really good at his job, because whenever anyone shook his hand, they always referred to him as doctor. And if your nickname is also your profession, that probably means you're really good at that profession. And everyone just held him in such high esteem. Even as a kid, I knew, without knowing what I wanted to be when I grew up, I knew I wanted to treat people the way that Grandpa treated people. And I knew that I hoped I could earn the respect that Grandpa earned from everybody he seemed to encounter. So to those of you gathered and others in the community, I know I can speak for Grandpa and the family in thanking you for the impact that you've had on his life and for the festivities today. It's something that Grandpa greatly appreciates. He has poured a lot of himself into the hospital and into the clinic. So thank you very much for this, and congratulations to Grandpa.